As the Ukrainian ammunition expenditure program rolls on and the American population remains transfixed by the right-left World Wrestling Federation January the 6th spectacle, and you know what I mean, the Pentagon quietly does the business in the background, preparing to disrupt both Russia and China on the Eurasian landmass. This is the battle for the world island, which we've been bleeding on about since 2018. Good old Halford Mackinder laid it out for us many years ago. Who rules East Europe commands the heartland. Who rules the heartland commands the world island. Who rules the world island commands the world. So, a great way to control East Europe is, of course, to sit right there in Ukraine. And I'm sure there'll be a couple of US bases built there very soon as the Ukrainians realise just how bad things can get. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Andrew Torba continues to spew forth his desire for a Kissinger and Associates breakup of the United States in stark terms. I've believed for years that the Balkanization of the states is the only peaceful path forward, and in many ways it's already here. The demographic, cultural and spiritual damage to the country is already done. When you radically change the demographics and destroy the Christian values of a country, you also change the culture, laws, norms of that country. And yeah, who did all the changing? Kissinger and Associates, of course. They opened the borders, they wrote the think tank documents, they run the Atlantic Council. Good old Kissinger and Associates, the same people running Torba's same crew. Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, Timcast IRL, all related to Dr. Steve Pieczenik and Goldman Sachs. All Kissinger and Associates boys. You'll work it out soon enough. Torba even included this nice map so you get the message. This is an Israeli plan, not an American one. Fostered by the Kissinger and Associates IIA team, which includes Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Timcast IRL, and a bevy of failed multimedia stars and out-of-work actors who found their political dissident roots, fame, fortune, and a cross-promotion contract. On the other side of the dialectic divide, we have Team Biden and CNN. It's a beautiful, laughable clown system, which always seems to work.
Come on. How is he a minority? Yeah. Yeah.
Rick.
Very powerless people.
Whoa.
But you're such a minority. I mean, please. What are you kidding?
You're telling me that
I'm telling you that everybody who runs CNN is a lot like Stewart. And a lot of people who run all the other networks are a lot like Stewart. And to imply that somehow the people in this country who are Jewish, are an oppressed minority?
Sanchez is just the latest big name to bite the dust for crossing the line with his comments.
I don't get it.
In August, Dr. Laura Schlesinger used the N-word 11 times during a 5-minute rant after a caller asked for advice on race relations.
Turn on HBO, listen to a black comic, and all you hear is Nick.
And in May, veteran journalist Helen Thomas lost her job after answering a simple question about Israel like this.
Tell them to get the hell out of Palestine.
We'll discuss how the United States military plans to keep Germany, Russia, China and Israel in line. That's why the US is in the Ukraine. Watch them build the bases. But you got to have a very growly bear Vlad running around threatening everyone. And he's doing a stupendously good job. We'll be doing this show in a group format of question and answer. But before we begin that, let's start with former Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo stating the obvious. The United States is fighting the Berlin, Moscow and Beijing axis, seeking to control the world island and by default, control the world. All via initially the Chinese Belt and Road Project, which is funded, of course, by the usual suspects, City of London, EU, UK banking, cartels. No one gets out of here alive. Will it be a multipolar world order as pushed by Russian GRU asset Alexander Dugin? Or will it be a unipolar world island led by a United States, brought back to its usual relatively normal calm, its states united in the Republic, working hard to actually make sure it actualizes its constitution and maintains the principles of individual freedom? Well, we can live in hope. Let's get talking together, but first is Mike Pompeo.
Fox News alert now. President Biden and world leaders meeting right now at the G7 in Germany on issues like climate, health, and energy. The administration pledging $200 billion towards a global infrastructure plan aimed to counter China's multi-trillion-dollar Belt and Road Initiative, Will it do that? Here to react, Fox News contributor, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, great to see you. But this is a good idea to counter what China's doing, helping struggling nations who might have some, natural resources that we might be able to use to give them some of their infrastructure. China goes in there, but they extort these countries.
Yeah, Brian, you've got it exactly right. This thing that the Chinese call their Belt and Road Initiative, they go to a small country to give them some money and a loan. And then when the project goes bad, they use that loan as extortion to get the political outcome that they're looking for. It's not how America rolls. I'm almost certain if it comes from the Biden administration, it will be all about ESG. It'll be about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It'll be about climate change. It won't be about the hard power solutions that these countries are really looking for. They need a response to the Chinese Communist Party, not a woke green agenda that is tied to these dollars that these G7 countries are now proposing they'll provide. This is a serious threat from the Chinese Communist Party. They need resources and assistance. This probably isn't going to be it.
Ladies and gentlemen, hi everyone. How are you? Say hi.
Hello.
It's one big happy family. Beautiful. Well, now you can shut your mics down, please. Let Brendan dominate and be dictator for 5 minutes, and we shall get into the what's going on. Ladies and gents, well, there seems to be a definite breakup of the US happening, Roe versus Wade. Just another incredibly polarizing issue we see today, and it seems this energetic breakup is moving ahead. It's definitely a part of their program. We'll see how that transpires over the next few years. There is also a decoupling, of course, from China, although when you do look deeper, you do find that this decoupling isn't that big. Look on your computer stuff, it's still made in China. So it's very difficult to say what's going on, but there seems to be preparation for getting the United States and China separated and forming that pan-Eurasian superstate. But will they? With, of course, the US possibly putting bases in Ukraine. That definitely seems to be the program. Bleeding Ukraine, just giving them enough weapons to keep going, letting Putin get the Donbass, lots of tension, not a lot of footage coming out of the Donbass like there was around Kiev. Maybe Starlink doesn't work in the Donbass, but we're just seeing the trickle of weapons keeping them going, and I'm sure once Ukraine has been bled, destroyed, and worn out, they will be ready for their smart cities program, for good or ill, and a whole new value system, perhaps communitarianism. Thank you, Amitai Etzioni, aka Werner Falk, aka Israeli Special Forces over there at George Washington University. And again, rest in peace, Nikki Rapana, and condolences to her daughter Nordica Friedrich. Thank you for your work on communitarian law. As the days and the years go by, you will see how important that work is. Ladies and gentlemen, once they get a couple of bases in, it's a good thing if we look at cold, hard geopolitics, Kissingerist geopolitics. I apologize to people in Ukraine and all over the world who are getting bullets and bombs through their windows. Obviously, it's not fun when that happens. But if the US maintains its presence right there in Eastern Europe, remember, he who controls East Europe controls the heartland. Who controls the heartland controls the world island. Who controls the world island controls the world. Thank you, Halford McKinda, as we push night and day. So you had the Berlin, Moscow, Beijing axis forming with, of course, Tel Aviv off to the side. If the US maintains its presence in Eurasia, then this can be a very good thing. If the US withdraws, builds North America, South America, it seems they're going to do both. It may well be the US will walk and chew gum. It's got to deal with Russia and China. I don't believe it's theatrics. However, they do theatrics. And some of the rhetoric, as we will see coming out of Beijing, as you saw in previous videos, is over the top, pure as Jorge Ochoa, Pablo Escobar, cocaine. It's pure anti-Semitic trope stuff. I don't believe it's an act. There's definitely a great deal of animosity now because Israel, I believe, has been told, no, the game's over, and God willing, they are removing the many, many backdoors in the US, but that remains to be seen. The great worry is there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence saying that this continual expansion is stopping. This is the worry. The Israel appears to still be firmly ensconced within US critical infrastructure, the military and others, but that remains to be seen. This could be a long war. As long as they remain in Eurasia and the Middle East, we'll see what happens. There's so much happening. This gentleman here, the US consolidates trade barriers with China. So you can watch this yourself. Of course, the links will be below. But as the gentleman describes here, he talks about the continuing pulling apart of China and America. I would debate just how organized this is. There is a very strong whiff of highly organized pulling apart. Just let's face it, I mean, China does have strategic nuclear weapons. There may well be a lot of animosity, and I'm sure behind the scenes no negotiating, breaking up the relationship and heading to family court to fight over the kids, so to speak. But all of that remains to be seen. Ukraine war close. Oh my goodness. Close ally calls on Vladimir Putin to strike London first in World War III on Russian media. A close Putin political ally and reservist general has called for a major Western city to be hit first in World War III. A close Putin political ally and MP Andrei Gorolov, 54, a member of a Russian Parliament's Defense Committee, advocated the Russian invasion of NATO Baltic states. I call horseshit. A lot of bluster, but not impossible. After all, they did bring down the world economy for 2 long years. After I saw that happen, as did you, and saw the links they went to, who the hell knows? And we'll just get through this section and then we'll move on and get questions from our little Google Meet audience. Here we have my favorite ordinary infantryman, Cappy, Task and Purpose. He's a great channel if you want to keep up on things. He's humorous and funny and does some very good critical analysis. Congress is bringing back the idea of a limited nuclear war. Quote, to me, it's all about deterrence. We need some capacity to be able to fill a deterrence gap. If we leave the gap, then we are at risk. Lawmakings are betting 45 million that a nuclear war does not automatically mean the end of the world. Again, you can read these articles yourself. I personally find it all a bit horseshitty and a bit fear-mongering, but possibly, the US just isn't that stupid. Okay, Chernobyl is very interesting. I urge you to go back and look at Chernobyl, and there's strong evidence that was an experiment. Now, admittedly, they just did such crazy things, and I have watched the Chernobyl series, which is excellent, based on actual scientific analysis of what went on in investigations, but there was something very wrong. Remember, the exact same reactor was kept running and runs to this day, I believe, 300 meters away. It had a sister reactor and has never stopped working to this day. And they were always bragging that the Chernobyl area, once they removed the humans, the radiation didn't last very long. It killed off certain genetic abnormalities, and then things appeared to return to normal, and rare wolves, rare bears, rare birds all returned, and they were bragging, just isn't it wonderful if we just remove the humans? Mother Nature comes back very, very quickly. What I'm going to do now, let's head back to our audience. I will stop sharing and presenting, and let's have a quick Q&A, ladies and gents. As you wish, who wants to raise a hand and make a comment and ask a question? Don't be scared. Somebody?
Brandon? Hello?
Go.
Okay, did Putin go into Ukraine originally to help the people of Donbass? Was that his greatest motivation?
Yeah, I mean, if I was the Russians, I wouldn't want NATO in my backyard, or the European Union, or drag queen story time. So I totally understand what he's doing, but there's a lot of agitation going on. But behind the scenes, in my opinion, it's what we've talked about. He's been running around with Israel and Beijing, chuckling to themselves, we'll deal with America. BB's been going, don't worry, Vlad, we got it all sorted out. Those freaking lefty bleeding hearts are giving me a hard time over these Palestinians. And he's, I think there's some tactical things that he wanted to move on. Israel was being exposed. More and more people were talking about technology transfer. And we see around 2012, 2014, there was massive where suddenly he's just kissing openly Putin and Xi Jinping, the start. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. Then you saw Pompeo gets over there and says politely, could you please stop doing business with China and Russia? And as nicely as he could. And I believe the cat's out of the bag. And I believe now they've been broken off and Putin's just gone for it. Putin was nervous, and I believe he said it's now or never. I honestly believe, in my opinion, they were caught, and they were very confident, very cocky, and the fact that the rhetoric's flowing thick and fast tells me that they're still threatening behind the scenes that they might do something to America. And I do believe that China shutting down Shanghai, which is their economic base, which is their big financial and manufacturing sector in that region. Eric Prince says it was Xi Jinping settling the young princelings in Shanghai to put them in their place, which is possible. But I also believe it was a warning to the United States, hey, we will release a biological weapon, because that's all they got. They can't take on the United States in traditional mano-mano aircraft carrier battle group stuff. They're going to get their asses handed to them. So I can definitely see them saying, hey, we can shut down our main industrial and financial sector. How about you, America? I also believe that may have been on the card. So it's not just Putin, it's that whole region. This is the battle for Eurasia, in my opinion. I'm going to edit this so it can be clunky. I'll edit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the article on China is supposed to shut us down cyber-wise. It would be like the next Pearl Harbor with our infrastructure and, the things that are going on. Where do you see that? Because the information transfer that you're talking about.
Well, that'll.
I wish I could find the article.
Yeah, well, that would be an act of war, obviously.
You're muted.
That would absolutely be an act of war, of course, and I'd like to see it happen. Look, it's a game of bluster, but I mean, I still can't quite get out of my head. It's arranged. Don't get me wrong; they hate each other. They're upset, and because I do believe this was arranged. Good old our friend Kissinger had arranged it all. And friends, I'm keeping it simple, and they basically are upset. Hey, you got Trump in. Trump was supposed to remove us out of NATO, move out of Eurasia, move out of the Middle East, set up Jerusalem, blah, 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 do the force UAE and MBS after his coke parties into the arms of Israel. Iran's job was to scare the crap out of the Arab states so they go into the arms of Israel under Rouhani and Zarif, the WEF boys, the Davos boys, and now it's off. That's my opinion. It's off now. The whole thing's out, and America said, I guess we're going to have to reestablish things. Trump was handled a certain way, and I do believe that, believe it or not, these people don't know everything. I believe the lobbying of ordinary people, you, others, all over the internet actually changed things. All the people handling things quietly who were meeting people, these people at Joint Special Operations Command, these people with friends serving and retired in the military, in policing, training, Department of Homeland Security. I believe it has filtered its way out slowly but surely. Remember Fred Smith, FedEx, coming along, chatting via his nephew, Joseph Davies, all this stuff. That really, these people are not as switched on as you think, which is why Dominic Cummings said, for God's sake, can we get rid of the Harvard and the Cambridge graduates and get us some real people into this analysis? And now they're employing housewives. You've got all these open source online, open source intelligence things operating, employing people in wheelchairs, housewives, ex-CEOs, and they're all contributing to open source intelligence, which is the way of the future as far as they're concerned. And at the superficial level, of course, Google, DARPA, they're always got their own AI intelligence operating in the background. But I believe the party's over, and the US is now going to reestablish its dominance in this bluster phase. They're in a big bluster phase, again, in my opinion. And there's a lot of backroom talk, a lot of backroom deals going on. That's the way I feel things are operating.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. And second of all, this Eurasia poll, from Europe, at least, it's not really very much understood or discussed. And it seems to me that until that comes to the fore, the debate is still, of course, I'm talking also about the so-called alternative media. The debate is trapped between, either you go with the globalist, or so NATO is bad, or you support Russia, because look at what's going on in Ukraine, etc., etc. So the debate, again, is a false polarism, bipolarism. But it seems, from what I hear from you, you think, on the other hand, that the Eurasian picture is indeed gaining more and more audience. Is that what you're just saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Bannon's talking about it pretty much every episode now. McKinderwald Island, Battle for Eurasia. We've got some footage I have to show of that. as we can see, we're getting more and more people that are talking about the bunting cloverleaf map. So all of these little narratives, these stories, these facts are gradually easing their way out there in the quote limited hangout controlled release environment we live in my opinion. So yeah, I would agree with you.
Thank you for the moment.
Yeah, and you're quite right. We're in this. You got to pick a side. It's just always just two sides. So forget about Biden and Trump. Just worry about the Pentagon. And I just put to you that Putin is not your savior. He's been cooperating with the World Economic Forum, Davos, from day dot. He's been a recalcitrant little child, and I believe they're having a big hissy fit at the moment. So maybe he, Bibi, and Xi Jinping actually had their own game going. Maybe they just said, like Hitler did. Hitler said, "Hey, thanks for the investment. I think I might handle this myself from now on. What say you?" And I believe this may well be happening right now. Back to you, Paola.
Thank you. In fact, there was a second part of the question I forgot. If this Eurasian scenario is coming to the foreground more and more, who is indeed in charge of this? Who is in charge of putting back the United States in control of at least partly of the Middle East area, and therefore interfering, so to speak, or at least slowing down the Belt and Road project? Who's going to be in charge of that? Because the United States is really, Biden doesn't. Are you implying that Biden might indeed have reversed the trend?
I don't think Biden matters. The Pentagon's running things. I think they're going to keep that senile old fool in power so Trump can easily win in 2024. I absolutely agree with Jason Funes that James Comey put Trump in by deliberately rightly so, going after Hillary Clinton, but never indicting her. She should have been out of the race, but who would have stepped in? Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders would have given Trump a run for his money. So they just left her in, teased it all, made sure all the factors are in place. Trump gets in. Trump doesn't do what he's told. He was meant via Kissinger and Associates to pull the US back, form the North American, South American Union, which they're still talking about right now. They're talking about it openly. I hope they're going to walk and chew gum, and America does both, develops North America, South America, and maintains its presence. Again, only as long as it starts, or the American people start fighting to make sure they represent their constitution. But I definitely think that that is the setup. And now they're going to bring Trump back in 2024, keep the senile old fool Biden there. Is there anyone else who's going to beat Trump short of election rigging? I don't know, but it just seems someone else is in control in the background. And remember, the Pentagon has been screaming about China for 20 years. Now it's been built up. What I fear and what we've discussed constantly between us, I fear they're going to do the Cold War 2.0, one way or the other, for good or ill, and they're going to build robots and drones. All new vehicles coming out of the military-industrial complex have an autonomous function. So you can jump out of your infantry fighting vehicle and you can remote control it out to 20 to 30 kilometres. Your aircraft are now demanding an autonomous, and Flight Captain Dan Hanley is with us right now from Pakistan talking about the autonomous, uninterruptible autopilots. And I believe this technology, a lot of which was developed in Israel, that's without question in all modern aircraft, though they deny it, that they are putting this in all of these machines. And we're slowly seeing the semi-autonomous kill vehicles and autonomous surveillance. And God help us, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, they will turn this stuff on us. And that's the big fear that we all have. However, if the American people will get a hold of their government, and they can, it's possible, and are wise, and you develop a cultural movement, got to think big, develop that cultural movement to make sure Americans in particular, with that fantastic political document, will prevail. Don't get me wrong, I'm not just an American Anglophile or whatever. I'm after freedom. And so far the only political document which says that explicitly is the US. So that's why I'm barracking for the US at the moment. But it's a very, very, very iffy situation. I'll hand it back to someone else.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for putting this together. It's been fun. So a quick question going back to Ukraine. Do you see a strategic tie-in to the Belt and Road Initiative with the physical location of Ukraine on the Black Sea and the major ports in Odessa? Does any of that tie into the Belt and Road plan, or maybe a backup plan for if the the primary route all the way through, Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, or Iraq, Syria, and Israel goes to seed?
I believe that's the exact reason why the US is there. Now, I'm a little touchy on the Taliban and Pashtun, what they're doing in Afghanistan. People have been saying that the CCP is making a lot of friends there. I find that very intriguing. However, we'll see if the weapons don't start flowing and China has some fun handling the Pashtun and others in Afghanistan. However, the Ukraine is a nice quasi-liberal European base, and as long as they're terrified of Putin, as long as they've been destroyed, and as long as now you find this split between Ukraine-speaking, Russian-speaking section, and if Putin just sits there on the Donbass and then they have a negotiated peace, then the rebuilding contracts begin in Ukraine, and they will demand a couple of big US bases in the Ukraine. Now, Putin has indeed made NATO great again. European Union has been severely debilitated. Now Germany, which was a big competitor to the United States, a very wealthy country, a very intellectual country, a very innovative country who was doing big deals with Beijing, China. They wanted to co-opt the Eurasian landmass. German technology for Russian oil resources and Chinese manufacturing. So that's been the battle that's going on. Now, Germany is looking at economic catastrophe if they lose their energy, and I'm sure the US is going to go, oh my goodness, our main competitor for tech is having problems. Can we help? And maybe they'll hand Israel a nice big oil and gas contract with all the oil fields and gas fields in both in Syria and off the coast of Israel. Who knows? But now Germany is facing a very big problem, and everything points towards a re-emergence of the dominance of the unipolar world order and less multipolar world order. And at the moment, I'm all for a unipolar world order, as long as the United States, as long as the rhetoric, and if Trump gets in 2024, as we've discussed, we've got to see an end to all this, compulsory that, all this spying. There has to be a backing off and a reinstitution of the US Constitution, which will happen if the American people demand it. So absolutely, the Ukraine is absolutely central to the America pushing dominance into the Belt and Road, down into the stands, and pulling in the weapons, and they can distribute it down through the area to make sure no one has a nice little cozy relationship in Eurasia. Okay, thanks for the question. I hope that helps. So we'll let everyone speak. Did you want to quickly say something, Harry? Your view?
The timing with the Ukraine and kind of these negotiations going on between the CCP and the Taliban, and it was kind of a strange coincidence that they would use that, because it looks like a negotiation tactic, like, hey, if you guys don't come to the table and be reasonable, we'll just go through Ukraine, we'll go up into Europe through that area and just cut you out of it completely.
That's what I believe they've done.
Kind of a pressure tactic.
That's exactly what they've done.
All right, cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you. Peter Spurker.
Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Peter.
I got a little. It's a question and a little info. I have a friend back in the old country. He lives in Slovakia, and he works for a local, basically oil company. They're getting the oil from Russia. It's still flowing, but the latest info. He told me that they have basically all Eastern Europe. I don't know exactly how Western Europe is, but the whole Eastern Europe has till February to adjust and to basically make changes, because the Russian oil will basically stop flowing. And what he's saying, they looking into different sources. And for right now, the Norway is starting to drilling. They're starting new drills, new exploration of their resources. They're gonna be supplying the oil to rest of the Europe, who basically nobody else has oil in Europe. But the question is how long this can last, how much this can help, or where this is going with the oil, because still oil is very important for the whole globe, and if they're gonna lose the Russian oil, it's gonna be a big hit. So far it's flowing, but it's gonna be very, 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 very short time lived. So
yeah, especially the gas and all of it, gas and oil. Well, number one, I'd have to say that
the gas, they already limit.
Yeah, they it's not like they didn't see this coming, and I'll give Trump his due. Back in 2018, he was hammering Germany. He said, well, why are we spending all this money on NATO if you're just going to team up with Russia and blah, blah, blah. So again, we're teasing out. I'm not the Messiah. I have a basic, I think I got a pretty good strategic view. That's why we're having these discussions with people, and we're offering people on the internet, on Patreon and YouTube and others to also add to that discussion to tease out these details. Without question, I'm sure they can find plenty of oil and gas from other regions. It's going to be more expensive. There has to be a transition. The UK has still got their North Sea Brent crude oil and all the rest, and I guess the UK makes a nice little dollar as well. But it's not like they didn't see this coming. So I can only go back to World War II, and it's almost a rerun. Energy. They cut Japan off. You saw Germany and, the Moscow trains to Berlin running with goods and services kept going right up to the start of World War II. I do believe we're headed for I don't know if there'll be war, will certainly be the risk of it. There'll definitely be a blockade of Taiwan. I'm pretty confident in September. There are, depends if the US flexes its muscles. But, Germany is facing, the whole of Europe is facing a big problem economically. Big problem. Because if, energy is the key. Cheap energy is the key to a good bubbling economy, and now they're going to take the oil and gas. That's a big deal. Who knows? But it seems to me they're trying to hamstring, cut the Achilles heel of a resurgence Germany. And a lot of Germans, not all, but a lot of Germans are a little worried about German nationalism. But and so is the rest of Europe, because they know how Germany can and will dominate with their culture and their culture of high technology and order. But also I can understand the German point of view. You've shafted us post World War II. You've made us pay for it 25 million times over. We'd like our place in the sun. And this is the battle, in my opinion, that's happening. This is really between a form of WASP, Anglo-American type team and a bit of a European battle, in my opinion. But how we tease that out, or is that just another dialectic and the same people are going to win again in another Cold War? That's the question I ask you. What are the details? Who's who in the zoo? Is there really just a Rothschild, evil Mr. Burns character directing everything, and all we see is another split-off fight going on, but someone at the top's going to win again? I ask you. I don't have that answer exactly. I just want the US Constitution strong and the US bristling with weapons, and to actually just say who wants to be in and who wants to be out, and not allow the shrinking back. I do not want an alliance with Russia, China, Israel, and Germany. That is the WEF. That is the World Economic Forum. That is Davos. That's the Fourth Industrial Revolution. That's COVID. And that is forced vaccination and all the rest, in my opinion. I want a resurgent America which guarantees rights and liberties. The trouble is, it looks like they're dividing America. So you tell me, let's tease this out.
Of course, I don't have the answer, but on the contrary, I just want to highlight how important it is to ask these questions. Because I repeat, one thing that worries me is that there is a dominant polarization, which is misleading, and obviously it's not by chance. And so I think that even just from a principle, methodological perspective, it's important to always look for a question, even the mainstream everywhere. Not just mainstream, but mainstream even within alternative media. The mainstream given polarization. And that I think is so raising these questions. It's very important. And even if you suppose you don't have the crystal ball, so even if your statements at the end of the day won't come true, but that doesn't matter. I think at this point what it is very important is always to have in mind that once this main narrative is established, so now we have to choose, I repeat, either between the bad NATO and Ukrainian Nazis or the good Russia. Essentially, this is the narrative now in the alternative media.
And Paola, as you said, it's always a damn false choice. It's always a horrible dialectic, always.
Exactly. I think that learning that this mechanism, this false dialectic, has always been all what we were given, so to speak, and learning to question that and to look elsewhere. Where else can I find polarization? What other polarities or bipolarities are there? I think this is vitally important.
And hence why we're doing this now, so that we can begin a discussion and others can also put their 2 bobs worth in. But I still get a little bit lost the closer I get into, I do believe, to me, I'll just say this, it's not a boxing match, it's a bar fight. It's a literal bar fight at the moment. I believe there's a huge mix right now. There's a huge bowl of spaghetti and it's trying to straighten itself out. And I believe for the past 5 to 7 years in particular, Trump was meant to come in and withdraw. That was the plan. Kissinger, Kushner, all the rest at the back. Build North America, South America, that cliche liberal Northwest, Georgetown University crowd, internationalist crowd, the ones with Biden. I believe there's been a giant fight going on for the past 5 years. We'll have to wait and see how it untangles.
Brendan, can you speak to, I feel like I see a lot of conversations around withdrawing from society, building some parallel communities and that sort of thing. Can you speak to what you see that doing either to the movement or within the movement to try to, keep a constitutional republic where we can? It just seems like I keep seeing these different conversations happening, and I'm curious that if that's even possible, if there's robots and drones, for instance.
Well, I certainly understand why people want to do it. I'd be doing it if I was in the United States. I'd be prepping like mad. I'd have bunker systems, tunnels. I'd have automated machine guns in towers. I'd be rocking and rolling. But walk and chew gum, by all means. Go and get your property. I mean, one thing in America, you're so green. There's a lot of green things and cheap land. And build your garden, form a community. But then you've got to be able to still engage in the fight. Because if people withdraw and don't engage, which they want you to disengage, and this is where Professor Noam Chomsky is useful, whatever his shortfalls, where he talks about people are being forced to disengage. They're sitting, they're watching television, they're now got this IIA operations of link sharing and just being angry. Everyone online is doing a reaction video. They're not lobbying, they're just saying, I'm angry, are you angry? Men think they're women, drag queen story time. These are polarizing fake issues so that we don't focus on the heavier and more detailed and maybe harder work of political lobbying and engaging in politics. And we'll say it again, we have all these internet stars with large audiences, and you tell me when they've said to engage in politics. They might dab it here and they might dab it there. I'll give it to Bannon. He's gone big on precinct and local elections and school councils. I know Julian Romanello is very big on all that stuff, and I know you guys have been working hard in your local precincts, but there's nowhere to run. I can understand in the short term it's definitely enticing, but there's nowhere to hide. They're going to get everyone. And in the Soviet Union, there's a great story. In 1953, a Heinz helicopter was doing some work, and they found 4,000 people living in Siberia. No one had ever heard of them. They had a big village. Well, they didn't just let those people harmlessly sit in the snow. They went in with trucks, grabbed them all, and threw them into a gulag, into a work camp. No one gets out of here alive. They want everybody goes into the smart city. So in the United States in particular, by all means, have your food store, have your ammo stored, but you've got to engage in politics. That's a very good point. We can't disengage. And people have said, I'm an American, Brendan, where can I run? It's like, what do you mean run? You don't run away from America, you run to America. Where are you going to go? Sweden? Where are you going to go? Going to Australia? That's going real well in Australia, isn't it? Look at them. Just everyone's doing exactly what they're told. America is it. So once America, if they can pull down the United States, destroy the petrodollar, destroy the primacy of the US dollar, the primacy of the high technology advantage that the US has, all the US has to do is soft power, stop the technology transfer, stop the technology transfer. Then they all fall down. They just fall down. There's nothing they can do. It's really that simple, but they're going to tell you it's complicated, and they have to get Kissinger in to tell them what to do, and the same old horse pucky continues. So yeah, don't disengage, walk and chew gum, put your farm in, put your garden in, form local communities, but also engage in your local area. Absolutely, you must engage in local politics, as you all are. God bless you all.
My thought on Judy's comment in Disengaging is that COVID has done that, and people now think that's a norm, because I see it, instead of going out, they'll either do video calls or they just don't want to get involved anymore. You know, stay 6 feet away. I mean, now they call that the norm, so it goes back to the narrative in that respect of what you're saying. I can see it here as well.
Yeah, as I've been so disconnected from society, I'm having to hear from people like you just how stupid people have become on a lot of issues, which even surprised me. Sorry, I'm just fixing something. Yeah, I mean, there are advantages to work from home, I'm sure. Again, it's like anything. It's like chocolate. Nothing wrong with chocolate in small amounts, but what's their intent with all this technology is to get everyone online, including the Pentagon. I mean, the Pentagon was doing everything remotely. Well, great. And who was running their encrypted comms, I wonder? No need to put a freaking listening device under the table in the Pentagon. They're just listening on their Zoom calls. If they can get everyone online at all times, thinking, feeling, and inputting data, that it's all good for their machine learning program and data analytics, and they just love it. But people have got to, instead of taking an extremist, polarizing position, which is, oh, I hate technology, I'm never carrying it, you've got to just use it, and then, have a thing and put your phone in, just disconnect when it suits you. Use it. I mean, this technology is fantastic. We are now all conversing from all over the world. Thank you, DARPA and Google, for your beautiful connection. Here's their routine. They never change, because it always works. Always polarize on any issue. Make people swing from one extreme to the other. Don't ever let them settle, be at peace, and think calmly. Always have the tension of the opposites. And if people can just calm down and think positively, they can then begin to think, they can get hope back. And that's our job too, to give a little hope as you guys all spread out and do your local stuff, and we get the cameras and the hidden cameras and we start engaging in politics. You only need that little trace of hope, and it's like a steam. It will pick up steam extremely rapidly, and we have the support of the middle management in all the right places. It has to happen. I believe there has been a change. So if we can stop getting shoved from one end to the other, stop hiding, but at the same time, by all means, get your property, grow your garden, form your community outside the city. But you must stay in and engage in your school boards, in your precincts, all of that local politics and federal politics. And don't think it's hopeless.
Okay, and just thank you, Loretta. And just a follow-up to that polarization piece as well. I feel like I've seen, and I don't know if other folks have seen this too, but polarization within sort of one side, if you will, or, some level of, I want to say, maybe controlled opposition. So someone who seems like they're on a certain side, who takes people and distracts them with something. And Brendan, I feel like you consistently go back to, get out there, be in person, and basically that's what it's going to come down to. Like you said, with the social media, IIA, just throwing it out there that it's not just left, right, but within their components to pulling apart the folks who actually are trying to keep our constitutional republic.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with social media, but just sitting there relying on it, making yourself feel better. Look, I'm doing something. It's just laziness in part, but hopefully people will reach the point of, in psychotherapy counseling, it's called the point of optimal frustration, where the patient says, I've had enough of being in therapy. I've had enough of being a victim. Well, we need that in the body politic, where people just stop being a victim, stop thinking, so negatively, and just get out there and start being that point of optimal frustration and anger. And that's what we're hoping where everyone will actually end up going, if that answers the question. Miss Unknown.
Hello? Yeah, it's Andrea. I'm sorry, I don't know how to add my name to that. Anyway, is this the building of the World Island? Is this really the same as the spread of international communism?
Yeah, well, we're so used to Stalin goose-stepping and Mao in his silly suit, the communists. That's why with Sufjan, right, the commies wear $1,000 suits. They're at Georgetown. They're at George Washington University. That establishment. There's a great scene out of The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio about the aircraft designer, Howard Hughes, where he visits Katharine Hepburn. And of course, they're all into the arts and into Roosevelt, very pro-Roosevelt socialist. And they say, I hope you're a socialist, Mr. Howard Hughes, And he's there, talking about building aircraft and being an innovator. And I know that Howard Hughes had a 15-year-old girlfriend and other insalubrious activities. He was a bit mentally ill, but genius nonetheless.
Dachshunds are little dogs, that's here.
I'll be lined up against the wall and shot. Just what's that Spanish painting? The
Goya.
Goya, of course, yes. Yes,
Now,
Mexicans.
We're
not
shooting anyone, not even the press.
Anyway, that's the vulgar press, I'm sure. Do you read much, Mr. Hughes?
I try to stay up to snuff on the trade journals, yeah.
Snuff?
These would be flying magazines? What was that? Oh, he's a little damn.
Pass the goddamn butter, I beg
You read flying magazines?
Trade journals
on engineering, aviation. We read books. Well, Howard has to read the trade pieces, Mom, because he's designing a new aeroplane.
Oh, really? Do tell.
Well, it's quite exciting, actually. It's a spy plane for the Air Corps. A twin-engine plane with some, I must admit, some rather unique design features. You see, it has these two booms.
Lenny built a birdhouse once. You remember that, dear?
Yes, well, a mere trifle, darling.
Oh, I remember the painting. The painting is called May 18 or something. Anyway, Goya's vastly overrated. All the Spaniards are.
Nonsense. Picasso is sacred.
I'm a urologist.
It was quite aesthetic, really.
A sacred monster, that's what Picasso
The birds
is.
didn't care for it much, but the bats do.
Oh, that's such...
You speak up, dear.
Nothing, Mrs. Hepburn, nothing.
Then why did you speak? I can't abide people who speak but have nothing to say.
Did you go to mechanic school to learn all this, airplane guff?
No, I didn't, Letty, no.
Well, Howard just flew around the world in 3 days, don't you know?
Enough about airplanes. And dogs, apparently. Then how'd you make all that money?
We don't care about money here, Mr. Hughes.
Well, that's because you have it.
Would you repeat that?
You don't care about money because you've always had it.
Well, then how did you make all
Excuse
that?
me, I'm speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Some of us choose to work for a living. Speaking of which, I have more of that airplane guff to attend to.
And you saw that contrast between the intellectual Northwest and this practical, more South, innovating, traditional, cliche American, go get it, let's build something, let's make something. And I'm sure there's a balance. I'm sure there's a balance that can be had. But right now, the intellectual class, what we typically call liberal or crazy class, which of course is highly manufactured, are breaking the country up right now. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I was thinking of international communism and the Belt and Road, the World Island.
That's correct. It's international communism. That's what it is. In $1,000 Armani wool suits. Yes, 100%.
Someone else? Okay, listen, I'll ask the quick question. I'm a bit worried about, again, the way even the so-called alternative frame the polarization. And the reason I'm worried is because, yes, we can go and take action. But then if the action is to push the public opinion towards in the arms of China and Russia, them staying home. Okay. Now, my question is, do you see that there is a potential danger that people they take action, but they don't see what I'm puzzled a bit at the moment is how come in the so-called alternative media, people don't understand that neither China nor Russia have any real traditions in liberal democratic, they don't have any constitution. So when I hear people, I'm talking about again, in Europe, not only establishing these polarities between Nazi Ukrainian and good Russia, that worries me a lot, and it's gaining more and more ground.
No, I agree. It's like you've got crazy cliche liberals in America, and so people look at Putin. Well, I'm sorry, can we just have a middle ground? I don't want to go to Russia where if I criticize Putin, I get a bullet in my head out the front of the, KGB headquarters and they turn the cameras off. I don't want to be shot outside my restaurant. Seth Rich would probably agree, but look, the point is America needs to be reformed, but don't destroy America. Go and live in Moscow then. Looks very nice. The big cities are okay. The rest of the place is a backwater. Don't have running water, don't have electricity most of the time. And I want to be a bunch of nepotistic pieces of garbage running the place, all mates and all oligarchy. I don't want oligarchy. You're already heading that way, America. But we talk about American oligarchy. Let's talk about Russia more. But, then you must love MSNBC. Oh, you must love CNN. See, we can't have a conversation. It instantly polarized. Oh, you must like Biden because you criticize Trump. Oh, you must hate Trump. You know what I mean? It's exactly the position we're in, which Bergie says. That's why I love Bergie in private comments. Said this is always what we do, Brendan. We make sure it is a polarized debate. Because once you're polarized, you can't have a debate because people switch off. You put them in fear, you energize. And as Scott has said, I go to a Trump rally, they're not interested in a debate at all. Zero.
But also it's the polarities that ends up in the same place. Because, like you said, when at the end of the day, going with the Belt and Road means 5G, smart cities, etc., passports, vaccine, it's the same place as the unipolarity. It's the same. So it's the bipolarity that takes to. So that is what is really considered. That's why I was saying earlier on, we need to learn how to question these given bipolarities, because they will always be given to us. Well,
look at 5G. Try and have a debate about 5G. When I first heard about 5G, I was panicking because I know what 4G does to me in home wireless. 2.1 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, home wireless and 4G. I put that stuff in my head, uploading. I go insane. I can't think. My memory goes. I feel unwell. I have a cough. I got shielding all over this. I've got things to plug in the phone so that, my phone isn't broadcasting all the time. So I can run a LAN cable. So I know about home wireless. I've investigated it a lot. So when I looked up, we can't even have a debate about 5G. You had the likes of an Ike or a large audience like an Alex Jones say 5G is going to zap you and kill you instantly. And they ask people, do you know the difference between sub 6 gigahertz 5G, which is 3.5 gigahertz? And yes, I've used it. It makes me feel terrible. That could be a problem. 4G is a problem, and so is home wireless. How many people are actually blocking it, not using it, taking their phones off their kids? It's a proven cancer clusters under the towers. Proven, they're shutting it down. Breast cancers at the ABC offices in Sydney, and on and on and on. No one's given up their 4G phone and their home wireless, but they're crapping on about 5G. Yes, 3.5 worries me. But that high frequency, 28 gigahertz, 60 gigahertz, bring it on. There's only one problem. It's key to the surveillance state. So we're trying to have a debate it's really, how do you even have a debate? And try to explain to people, I'd rather have a 60 gigahertz Y-gig in my room where I upload in 1 second instead of my 4G uploading or my home wireless uploading for 10 or 15 minutes. I know which one I'll prefer. One can't penetrate a piece of paper. The other thing is vibrating my molecules. It's making me feel unwell. I just want a literal, rational debate. What are we going to do with this technology? It's coming. There are good aspects to the Smart Cities program. I think it's great. I think technology can be wonderful. But I want a choice. The point is, give us a choice. And if you want to live in Chicago or New Detroit when they build it, and you want the UBI, and you want to sit around and visit your online AI therapist or whatever you want to do, shave your balls with your man shaving kit, whatever you're doing, working out in the gym and becoming self-absorbed with yourself and doing your meditation or whatever, fine. But I want a choice. The plan is to never give us a choice, or if they give us a choice, it's a false choice. And that's where we're at. And we've got to break that. And I'm not entirely sure how we do it, but we're trying here. So it's that either or. We're back again to polarization. Oh, I don't want a smart city. I don't want technology. I'm going to reject it completely. At some stage, you've got to engage and sit down, and at your local and federal level, there's got to be a discussion, transparent government discussion, not these effing quasi-government corporate programs we see now with Israel leading the way, when then they say, well, we can't have, because we're a private company, we can't tell you. There's no FOI. Sorry. This is what Bergie said. I can't fart in the US Army without paperwork. And they keep telling you, government's bad, government's bad. No, government's good because I'm on the board, I get a vote, and I can engage in the politics. They bring in the private transnational corporation, East India Trading Company, and tell you, the rest is history. We've got to stop this privatization and all the rest of it. I'll stop. Does that assist? Because you're raising very important points. Everyone is. It's really good.
Yes, hello.
Hola. Loco, the new.
Hi, can I ask you a question? I did research into Enigma Strategic Communications, which is an offshoot of Strategic Communication Laboratories Group. which is the parent company of Cambridge Analytica. So I looked into the Enigma Strategic Communications website.
Enigma. That's an interesting name.
Enigma.
That's the old German coding machine. Ultra Intercepts Enigma. Yeah.
It was founded by a guy named Seven Hughes, as I told you before. He's best friend with Nigel Oakes, the CEO of SCL Group.
Oh.
So I looked on their website. And I basically found out that they do work for the royal households, prime ministers, presidents, very powerful people, you name it, but they don't tell you who's who. You know, they keep it very well hidden and secretive. They're not boastful and arrogant about it, like SCL Group is, like a gorilla beating its chest. Like they're more stealthier than SCL Enigma. So they've done a lot. So the stuff that I know, what elections they've done one in Vincent and St. Kitts that SCL Group did before. They did one in Trinidad and Tobago.
That was the Do So Don't Vote program, the Disengage program. We should cut to that right now. Yes, very interesting. How to disengage a population. Fascinating.
Yeah. And so they've done other works around the world. And before they were known as Enigma Strategic Communications, they were known as Verbalization Limited, and it's in the name. So they're all about understanding how words can influence the human brain, how words can influence the human mind. And they were trying to use it for influence operations, you know, like, you know how like Donald Trump is like the working man, like the working class of America understand him because he's more simplistic. The working class understand him. And so verbalization wants to learn those words because it's more simplistic.
Keep it simple, straight out of Saul Alinsky. Just do emotive, single, easy to understand issues.
Yeah. Don't make it overcomplicated or sophisticated, otherwise people don't know what you're talking about. And it gets very confusing. And so that's what they really do. And that's all I've researched so far into Enigma Strategic Communications. I mean, they've done research for commercial companies for Shell Corporation, O2. That's all I know.
Sorry, just make sure you send me in, and I'll be editing all this, and I'll edit in. Just send me materials and images and links, and I'll, as people raise these issues, I'll edit that in. So this will turn out quite well. I mean, this is going to be edited. It's not just going to be.
There's even I think there was a military industrial complex Wikipedia article about them in the UK. What kind of work they've done.
Yeah, and they're close links also with NATO, and we presume General Jim Jones, denology, marine psych warfare operations. And again, we debate whether these are pan-American nationalists working, but these are in fact on the board of Lockheed. They're hanging with Heinz Kissinger, and they're in the program. We'll have to see whether a more nationalistic element exists and whether they are moving right now. Hopefully they're moving right now. But that's all good, very good stuff, Liam. So please send me stuff, and anyone here, as we discuss this, and you can think of interesting links, please send them to my email. And I'll put them in this. I'm actually very excited about this video. I think this method of having people come to the Google Meet and interact could be a very good format. But anyway, we'll try and see what happens. All right, thanks, Liam. We'll cut to the next question. Where's our Swiss boy? Where's our Swiss man child? Megan?
I'm over here.
Well, we'll go to our Swiss man child, and then we will maybe Megan can have, because Megan had an interesting job. I don't know whether you want to say anything about your life, Megan, because this will end up on YouTube. You had an interesting job. We'll get back. Anyway, I'll edit it out. I can edit it out later. Anyway, let's chat to our Swiss connection. Hello, Swiss connection.
Hello, yes.
You had a question?
So yes, I'm, no, not really, but it's very interesting so far, yes.
Tell us about your book. You're reading up on Nelson Rockefeller. What have you found in that book? You sent me an interesting quote. Basically says, yeah, we're taking over the world. It's a great idea. Get used to it.
Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying the book because he makes some very interesting commentary on him and Henry Kissinger and meeting King Faisal, and he even writes that apparently King Faisal believed that Israel was a front for the Soviet Union and that they were pretending to be friends with America.
Really?
And
Get me
their
that
goal was
quote.
to actually infiltrate.
Get me that quote.
It's very interesting. And David Rockefeller said, his quote was, that his beliefs were bizarre and all that, but we all know that that's actually true. But
wow.
That's very interesting. He also mentions going to the first Bilderberg meetings and all that, so it was very interesting understanding that. And of course he says, it's very benign and there's no problem there whatsoever. We're just having a little bit of a dialogue and all that. But
well, it could be benign if we were involved in the discussion. It could be. I mean, we could all work together. That we could cull this population gently and produce a more educated and when I say higher quality, I don't necessarily mean the listening to Bach and composing symphonies, but I just mean a deeper, more thinking individual human being over 100 years. We could definitely do it, but of course they appear to have their own agenda, and their agenda appears to be based on retaining power, not solving problems. But please keep me up to date with that radical concept of reading books. Books are just so filled with great quotes, and we often find it's difficult to have time to delve into this. So people doing research, send it to me. I'll make a video, accept all the glory, the money, the accolades, and the free flights. And I think we could get a good open source, that was a joke, a good open source community happening. Thank you, the Swiss Connection.
You're welcome.
Megan, did you... I was just saying, did you ever want to discuss your background at all publicly? It would go on YouTube, or any interesting things you have to add, or you just prefer to?
No, excuse me, not really. When I was working for Indian Affairs before I retired almost 15 years ago, I was not directly involved with the native groups in the province at all. I was support staff for those who did work with them. So it was a nice place, excuse me, nice place to work and all that. But it's been so long ago, I really don't remember all that much about it.
But it's just good to see people from interesting professional backgrounds chatting and moving, and then of course you're talking to different people and look, this is the way you change the world, just little bit at a time, without question. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to go on YouTube? Or do you want to move on to the next subject? Jared, I don't think we've met Jared before. Jared, did you want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, g'day, mate. I'm from Australia. I was going to ask you what going to go on down here. Because
what the hell's going on here? Crikey, mate. I'm sorry, the Australia. What? That reminds... Yeah, go, Jared. Have a quick hello. Let's go.
Yeah, how you going? Yeah, a lot of the stuff you say, like get politically active and all of that, mate, here we are shafted. We are full shafted. And you try and talk to anyone and they just go, what are you trying to talk about? And you mention any of the things and it's just, blind eye, deaf ear sort of thing.
Yeah,
what do you reckon's going to go down here,
the
mate?
last 10 years, something happened to
Because
Australia.
every time I talk to someone here, they just get you get nothing.
Yeah, Australia was pretty good for a conversation. It's gone full. I don't know why they put something in the water, but look, Richard Foley is a council member. He's in Wagga Wagga. He's going to go for mayor eventually. He's legally connected. He's been to Canberra. If you can try, I'm not sure your location, or whether you want to tell us your location roughly. Which state are you in?
And I'm in New South Wales. I'm not too far away from where you just mentioned.
Why don't you get in touch with Richard and do a bit of networking there? And he's in touch with a wide range of the community there. And he's full bottle. We talk all the time. I'll be doing an Australian. You're up late, by the way. Sorry about the times, but we'll try.
No, early, mate.
What's the time there?
6:18.
That's dedication. So it's Monday morning there.
Yeah, Monday morning.
All right. Well, we'll definitely do.
I might need to leave early. Got to take the kids to school and do all of that sort of jazz.
Do all that, yeah. All right, for people like me, plenty of time on the hands. But we'll try and do an more friendly Australian time. Definitely, we're just tweezing this out. But yeah, something's happened in Australia. I was shocked. My uncle's in the union movement in the old days. He'd roll a cigarette with one hand and while he's driving, real sheep and the the real old school grassroots union movement. And when the coppers were putting the butts of rifles into people's spines as they're handcuffed on the ground, I thought coppers are going to get their heads belted in. People are going to visit them, large men with beards, union movement, bikies, you know what I mean? There was going to be some, and nothing happened. The police were just running amok. I thought police would be resigning. I thought police would be protesting. Nothing happened. I was in total, absolute shock at what happened. I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying, you start putting butts of rifles into people's spines while they're handcuffed on the ground, and all the other footage that was coming out, particularly out of Melbourne, what the hell has happened to the Australian public that they would tolerate that?
Mate, we've lost our mongrel.
Yeah, we're gone. People say, oh, you tough Australians. And I'm going, yeah, reckon? Sorry. That's 30 years, 20 years ago. It's all gone. Lost our mongrel, which is vernacular for, a bit of an animal, a bit of a, bear in the teeth. I've even noticed it in the 6 years since I left. I can't recognise the place, but I guess this is the outpost colonial colony, and the people have got their eye on Australia. It's beautiful, it's empty, it's massive resources, it's clean, and it's like a tabula rasa, a blank slate they can take on. But thanks, Jarrett, and well, kind and make it nice and a nice time for Australians to have a yarn, have a chin wag.
No, you're right, mate. It doesn't matter getting up early. It's not a big deal.
Man, you and Harry got to get together. I want to see those beards a little softer, a little more conditioned, flowing in the wind.
Mate, no product on this.
All right, good on you, Jared. Do you want to move on? Why don't we move on to unless someone has a really pressing question? I thought we might move on to the next part of the little show. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on to Guff, the man I love to hate now that BB's gone, but making a comeback, and we'll discuss that. Heinz Kissinger, of course, the link is below. Henry Kissinger on the Ukraine war. It was in May 11, 2022. Heinz Kissinger, we're now living in a totally new era. Heinz doesn't look confident these days. I don't think he has the control he has. I think he might be a little bit on the outer. I think Heinz might not be getting invited to the cocktail parties at Georgetown as much these days. However, he's, of course, pushing hard, very, very hard for his boy Putin. Let Putin have a bit of the Donbass. Please don't destroy my boy. Teasing out Kissinger's current format, teasing out Kissinger's current role in things would be very interesting. However, I put to you that he and Jared and the crew and that Russian Beijing Tel Aviv connection was, I believe Trump was brought in to do the job. Withdraw the United States back. And I believe you saw that shit fight between Kissinger and Bannon and the old Office of Naval Intelligence crew. And again, we need to fit these into the narrative, because now who's Bannon hanging around? Now he's with the man I love to extricate, Eric Prince, Rudy Giuliani, trying to tease out what the hell, who's who. I'm finding really, really difficult. But I do know one thing, without question, in my mind, in my opinion, Trump was brought in, Comey assisted, Cambridge Analytica, SCL Group, as Liam talked about, which is involved with NATO, General Jim Jones, etc., Denology, Clear Force, as the Shadowgate series brought up. I believe they brought him in. I believe there was a giant shit fight that went on. And I believe Trump was coming around and doing some very positive things along the way and doing some things, a lot of, again, confusion. Then he's doing things nobody likes. And it was very difficult to see what's going on. With COVID, it may well have been the narrative that, look, we're going to war with China. They're threatening biological weapons. We need to get the people ready for biological warfare. That's possible. There may actually be a real organic grassroots aspect to that. However, at the same time, it's a great narrative to convince the military to go along with things as well. And we can see what's happening with the military as we speak, as well as the general population. So again, as we zoom out, things are very clear. But as we zoom in, it gets into the bar fight. And this is what we hope to tease out over the coming weeks and months with ordinary citizen participation. But Heinz Kissinger remains a major factor. And now I see Bibi making his little comeback. I spoke with some Israelis. They said, we don't think he's going to make it. I disagree, even though I'm not there. I think he will. There's something going on. They want to reinstigate this system, which is Berlin, Moscow, Beijing, and Tel Aviv. I don't believe Heinz Kissinger is helping. I believe Heinz Kissinger is there to hamstring the United States and get it to pull back, to reform that multipolar world order. I don't think they're going to pull it off. I think the US will move forward. We hope, but of course, we're worried again and again, as you will see with Julian Romanello's work and the work we hope to do, that more and more investment is pouring in from Israel to Israel. There's definite signs that Israel's been told to cut off, and there appears to be a big shit fight going on. There really appears to be so. So it looks like a Trump 2024 comeback. They're going to keep Biden in. That will ensure a Trump victory, obviously. The voting machines. Again, what did Patrick Berge tell us? He said, if they use Trump to attack their enemies, they will use Trump to attack their enemies. If they want to attack Trump, they will attack Trump. It's not about politics. It's about power and profit. But most of all, power. Who rules? And of course, cyber is the real domain of power. Again, the link is below. That is a very popular video, over 1.2 million views. This is very interesting. The gas crisis. Thank you. Breitbart. Germany warns of Lehman Brothers style financial collapse if gas crisis continues. Energy is everything in the economy. Very true. Of course, you will know the relationship between Gerhard Schroeder and good old Vladimir Putin. They were like this. Remember, Putin speaks fluent German. Although they made a lot about him and Angela Merkel not getting along, Angela Merkel's been right there assisting, wanting the raw energy and resources from the Moscow Axis without question. She's been right there along. Maybe they don't like her. Joschka Fischer, remember old Joschka Fischer was a full-blown communist in his day. I kind of liked him. I remember him in the 90s. But Joschka Fischer, these were full-blown commies. And then you have, of course, the KGB officer he was handling the Baader-Meinhof gang in the old days. And of course, as we get along, we'll look at Yuri Primakov, which was Kissinger's right-hand man, KGB connection. That's how he met Putin, and they pulled Putin in via Primakov. Primakov just died recently. But here we see in Germany facing that collapse. And, I guess a hamstrung Germany is exactly what the Anglo-American establishment, if we believe there is a split, exactly would want. Given the grand chessboard fighting. New York Times. This New York Times article is from June 26, 2015. Sorry, he didn't die recently. He died 7 years ago. Yevgeny Primakov, former Russian premier and spy master, dies at 85. They've even got a nice picture of him with Kissinger. I'll have to find the quotes. But in my video 51, I believe, about Kissinger and the Smart Cities program, you will see the quotes, and I will find them, where he's meeting with Primakov, KGB, and the Red Mafia. Those were the connections. Kissinger and associates were backdooring. Kissinger always brags. He always brags in every book he's ever written how he would bypass the US State Department every time. He said, I need to get stuff done. I just go and do it via that private East India Trading Company network. Of course, he then claimed once he was out, of course, he didn't interfere in those things. He didn't speak to the politicians directly. No, he spoke to the business class who speak to the politicians. And that's why you see the oligarchs set up. So Kissinger and associates and others like them, the think tank groups, can have relationships with the business class who control the damn politicians. So they avoid that, the Logan Act, which they snared the idiot General Flynn on. And that's another story. I mean, General Flynn would never have got in trouble if he just admitted that, yeah, I was having conversations with him, big deal. Oh, yeah, bring the Logan Act to get me, knocks yourself out. They would never have done it. I don't know why Flynn self-immolated and set himself on fire, but he did. I'll never understand it. Putin says Russia is building the New World Order right now. Well, you bet he is. He's been cooperating along the way. Some might say, and I'm sure there's an argument amongst particularly the white nationalists and the Putin fans, that he was doing a cunning plot. Yeah, with Bibi. See, I love this stupid idiot white nationalist or nationalist type movement who love Putin. The enemy of the United States is Israel, and in particular, not all of Israel, but in particular, the Bibi Netanyahu outfit, the East India Trading Company. So don't tell me when you understand how Bibi is attacking the sovereignty of the United States, penetrating for multi-decades, and we just had our Swiss connection talking about King Faisal saying he believed Israel was a front. That's very interesting, and we'll get that quote up as soon as we can. But to think that you would think Putin mixing it with Beijing and Israel is a good thing, you're either mentally retarded, in which case block them, just get rid of them. They're just so ridiculously stupid. Or, of course, you're part of that vast network who are getting paid to push that narrative. And Russia and Israel are working very closely, or aspects of those companies are working very closely to push that narrative. I mean, look at this. Look at this garbage. The world will not be as it was before the special operation, Russian President Putin said in his speech at the plenary session of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Vladimir Putin has accused Western leaders of clinging to the shadows of the past as he creates a new world order with his invasion of Ukraine. The world will not be as it was before the special operation, Putin said in his speech at the plenary session of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Quote, "It is erroneous to believe that one can sit and wait when the time of turbulent changes goes by, when everything goes back to where it was. It won't," Putin said. According to him, the changes are fundamental, crucial, and inexorable. Well, of course it is, because Henry Kissinger and the East India Trading Company told him that is how it would be. However, that's me quoting, by the way. However, he said that Western countries, quote, "cling to the shadows of the past." For example, they believe that the dominance of the West in global politics and economy is a constant and eternal value. Nothing lasts forever, Putin says. Well, that's straight out of a Kissinger, The Rise and Fall of Empires. No, the empires rot from within because of people like a Heinz Kissinger, apart from laziness, of course, as well. Putin also took a swipe at the European Union, saying its leaders are, quote, "dancing to someone else's tune." Again, this is straight out of the Cold War Soviet propaganda, always trying to break off NATO and get NATO out of Eurasia. The European Union has finally lost its political sovereignty. Its bureaucratic elites are dancing to someone else's tune, accepting whatever they are told from above, while causing harm to their own population and their own economy, Putin said. He warned that this divorce from reality will lead to populism and a host of other negative effects, well, particularly with you and Israel creating all those groups and funding them and creating chaos in the US, Vlad. Such a divorce from reality with the demands of society will inevitably lead to a surge of populism and the growth of radical movements, and Vlad will be assisting with that, to serious social and economic changes, to degradation, and in the near future to a change of elites, Putin said. The 69-year-old even claimed that Western sanctions on Russia haven't worked. Well, it's probably quite true. I'm sure Heinz Kissingers is keeping him alive. That's why he's got super crews now. We'll get there. Hang on. We'll get there. We will have a discussion very shortly. The 69-year-old claimed that Western sanctions on Russia haven't worked. Quote, "The goal was understandable, to crush the Russian economy violently, to destroy business chains, forcefully recall Western companies from the Russian market, freeze domestic assets in order to affect industry and finance the standard of living of citizens. It hasn't worked out. Obviously, it hasn't. But it has not materialized," Putin said. Again, Kissinger will be assisting. Brazen Putin even said Russia was, quote, "forced to invade Ukraine." Well, technically, makes sense. Fighting is always a tragedy. This is a forced action that we had to make. We were forced to do it. That's the whole point. We were just dragged to this line. We could talk and talk and talk. We might stop there and go to back to the chat, and we'll let everyone have a say before we go on. We will let everyone have a chat, of course, and put their 2 bobs worth in. I'd just like to say that I don't blame Vladimir Putin, as if he was a sincere Russian nationalist, of doing what he's doing, naturally, as the United States would in its corner of the woods. However, I believe the takeover of Ukraine and the expansion of the old Soviet Empire, Russian Empire, into the old Soviet Union was a given. It was organized. It was going to happen. Again, the plan was always the United States of Europe under Hitler, Northern Eurasia under Stalin, Southern Eurasia under Mao, and David Ben-Gurion there in the cloverleaf map. I believe they are 70, 80 years way behind, still to this day. This is the fight. So they have not had it all their own way. Remember, Dracula cannot fight in the light. He has to sneak around and do things in the dark, and they've had enormous problems and resistance along the way. Just as I believe in 1988, as Bolin speculates, they meant to have the World Trade Center security. Someone in the intel community in America told the Port Authority. The Port Authority then took the contract away from those 2 Israeli Defense Force, Mossad and the ex-general, on war crimes charges. That may well have put 9/11 back over 10 years. And then we got into the age of 2001 of the internet, which has allowed us to pull it apart. If they'd have had 9/11 in 1990, 1991, 1992, they did their half-assed 1993 bombing. But if they had pulled that off then, it would have been a very different story. Ode-Ginon, invasion of the Middle East, and what we're seeing they're trying to do now, form the Greater Federated States of Greater Israel, would have been accomplished perhaps in the 1990s, and we could speculate on how things would have been very, very different. These people have not had it all their own way. All right, I'll open it up now to the audience. Who has a raised hand?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment in the respect.
Or a comment and question,
individuals
please.
Who are first. Okay. So you were saying Putin causes chaos in the U.S. If there's individuals who have not or understand, can you highlight on that? Because you may have some new viewers watching.
Yeah, well, they've got a massive influx long-term sleepers, the old illegals, the old GRU sleepers. They've got sympathetic Russians there. They've been moving into the US for 50 years. You've got the Israeli connection, the opening of the doors of the Israeli-Russian connections. You've got Russians, immigrants, maybe first generation, second generation, third generation Russian and Ukrainians in Israel who now have dual national citizenship, have an Israeli passport, visa clearance into the United States. They're running around in the United States. They've got running around within Israel and in Russia, tens of thousands of them. And now, we have to highlight their activities, and then they say, oh, you must work for CNN. And then CNN's saying the same narrative, so we look like we support CNN. And again, we get back to what Paola was saying previously. They are trying to break up and polarize and confuse, and this is what you do when you're a communist. We can't take you on head-to-head, but we will infiltrate an open society and cause a great deal of havoc. And now, of course, the US is responding by shutting down, closing down debate, and here we go. Now we're gonna end up like the Soviet Union, and maybe that was the plan.
Hello, Brendan. Regarding Hitler, you know that there is a debate going on over Hitler and what. There's another story. There's another narrative, right? And
I'm happy to discuss this here, but if it's Holocaust stuff, it won't make it to YouTube. We've just got to be disciplined. But yeah, go on. I have a view. I'm a big buff of World War II history. Go.
Okay, so it's not like I'm well read concerning the subject. I'm not. I've listened a lot, but from what I've heard, Hitler was a World War I hero, wasn't he? I mean, he had a dangerous job.
Yeah,
right. He was
Iron Cross first class twice, and they try to make out he was a half-wit. He had a regimental runner, which was probably the most dangerous job you could have. You're the number one target of all artillery snipers.
Yeah. And he was in the hospital, and then he went back out as a courier, and so
Adolf Hitler was a very brave man, without question.
Yeah, he was also very talented. He was a talented artist.
Yeah.
And it's so these things just don't make sense to me. That he was willing to sacrifice the German people. I mean, after he took over in 1933, he kicked the Jews out. Just to be frank, and they were in. It's just like here. I mean, they were in high places in government. They had taken over the media.
Well, he had tried. Like everyone will tell you, there was no original plan for a mass extermination. The narrative is, and it sounds about right, they just thought everyone would leave. Then America closed the doors. Roosevelt assisted.
Well, Roosevelt was a communist.
Yeah, well, he closed the doors to Jewish immigration.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't want to help them out. He wanted more problems. Okay. But anyway, so Hitler takes over in 1933. The Jews declare war on Germany. What the heck are they going to do? There's a huge problem going on. They can't. Germany can't survive with this. What they've. The ban on buying. I can't remember the name of the word, but buying any German goods worldwide. They claim.
Do you think a man as smart and as strategically and tactically smart as Adolf Hitler would be so stupid as to? Why did he go so racially baiting? Because he was paid to do that. That was his job. I believe 100%. He was working with British elements of British intelligence, the East India Trading Company. He was brought to power by that banking cartel. 100%. His job was to create the Federated States of Greater Israel, beginning with the immigration of European Jews to Palestine. That was his job. So I mean, I'm not going to. He's not innocent. He's not just what he appears to be. He's not.
And did he not kick the central bankers out?
No, he didn't kick the central bankers out. What, they keep claiming? Well, he arrested a Rothschild. Goering was running around protecting him, so was Himmler. The frickin' Warburgs sat out the whole war in southern Germany, untouched. They're the arch Jewish German banking cartel, never touched. Come on, you can't have it both ways. The behaviour, it was madness. The race-based stuff they were pushing it turned everybody against them. They go into the Ukraine. Then the Ukrainian says, fuck, we're not friends of Russia, but after the way you treat us, go to hell. So they started, why would the Russians, after all they went through with Stalin, were cheering the German troops, giving them bread and salt, thanking God with the crosses on the tanks? Why the hell did they all start turning back to Stalin? Because of the behaviour, the gulatars, the mayors, the local precincts. They were mass murdering Jews and undesirables. They were doing collective punishments of whole villages, 100, 200 at a time. They were doing it in Italy. They were doing it in Czechoslovakia. They were doing it in all of Eastern Europe. It was horrible. I mean, the Allies too have committed war crimes, but nothing like the horrors that were perpetuated by the German armed forces, and in particular the Waffen-SS and Einsatzgruppen and Sonderkommando. I mean, it was horrible. Baba Yar, anywhere from 30,000 to 100,000 Jews just thrown in ravines over 2-3 years. Men, women, children, mass executions. Baba Yar in the Ukraine. You know, not even David Irving will dispute that. You know, he wants to dispute this detail and that detail. It was horrible. You can't have a polarized go from one, in my opinion. You can't go from, I believed everything I saw on the BBC, Hitler was a monster and he was a madman. Then slowly you go the other way and you believe, well, there was no Holocaust because it's such a big pack of lies. And then suddenly, slowly, you will slowly come back to the middle after you just do more reading and have more of a deeper think and realize, no, there was very, very bad things going on. You didn't need an industrial scale slaughter in gas chambers to go after what was going on in National Socialist Germany. Now, they were constantly pushing, I do enjoy that G. Edward Griffin lecture, The Politics of Cancer Therapy of all things, but he goes into the history of I.G. Farben and who was funding, which goes into Professor Anthony Sutton and Wall Street and the rise of Hitler. Hitler's ideology, you know, pro-environment, pro-animals, hates humans, all that stuff. That is exactly what you'll see in the left today. And what's his name? Deepak, who's the Indian guy who does a lot of good documentaries, pro-Trump guy, but he does good documentaries. You know, he does
Dinesh D'Souza.
Dinesh D'Souza. Watch that one, America, What Would We Do Without Her? It's really good. And there's another one where he shows there's, you know, the left, the cliche left are the fascists. The other one, I mean, Roosevelt loved Hitler. They were considered themselves quite friendly. And, you know, I just think, I understand where you're coming from.
Roosevelt was working with Stalin. He was
working with all of them, but they're all socialists / communists. Well, Hitler was what? National Socialists.
What about the famous general, whose name escapes me right now, who said, we fought the wrong enemy? What was his name?
Patton.
George S. Patton.
Patton, right. Yeah, we fought the wrong enemy.
Yeah, Patton allegedly came after he slapped that soldier for PTSD and he actually booted him in the backside and said, go back to the front. He was quoted as saying, the Jews invented shell shock. That's actually in the history books. The Jews invented shell shock. That's Patton.
I get it.
Well, I'm just saying, Patton was very well aware of things. He loved the German people, so they're very industrious. Once they'd come through, they were straight out cleaning out. Yeah, look, he knew what was going on, and he was no doubt gotten rid of.
Yeah, and they murdered it. But and then there's Churchill. What was he about?
Yeah, well, Churchill, I didn't realize that Churchill in 1945 was pushing the same Hans Morgenthau sort of supranational state. I thought my reading of Churchill was he was against, when he ran in 1946, when he was voted out, he ran against all these Stasi-like things to do with registering unemployment benefits and things. If you do that, I remember the lectures he's saying, if you do that, you'll end up like the Soviet Union with a register for all citizens. But at the same time, he's giving lectures where he's pushing for the same Morgenthau, type supranational UN, the power of the UN, all this sort of stuff. He was a drunk. I think you know all this stuff as well as I do. He was an amateur artist and he was a drunk. And I guess he was brought in because Hitler was going too much his own way. I mean, you never hear even a debate on Hess, parachuting out into northern England. That's incredible. And then he's strangled when he's about to get out of Spandau prison with a power cord. I mean, the secrets of the Second World War is dirty as can be, and we've still got barely 10% of it.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, no, it's the history needs to be, the professionals can do it instead of us amateurs. The professional historians need to have a full look at the Second World War, but they're not going to like what they find.
There's no debate on it. There's no debate. There's no debate.
Well, it's been a little bit. I mean, Irving's still done good stuff. He admits the horrible things were done, very horrible things. He just debates certain elements of the Holocaust. And the trouble is, again, we're polarized. We're polarized again. Oh, Hitler's a saint or Hitler's evil. No one wants to have a conversation about Hitler. They're not allowed to, because if you have a conversation about the man, the talented artist, the history buff, the meth addict, and, he was high on meth most of the time via Dr. Morell. Erwin Rommel called it the sunshine cure. And, Hitler was constantly at war with his Prussian officer corps and what he saw as Masonic Prussian officer corps. But the goings on the Eastern Front we're discussing, they were bad. Look what happened to Poland. I mean, there was mass execution. There was horrendous things going on. Then they say, well, the German military behaved badly because of the 6,000 Germans that were massacred. Yeah, and that was bad too. The Poles need to answer for that. But this is why we need a reconciliation type thing, and there's something to debate in the future so that the historians can get in there and tell us the damn truth about the Second World War. It was a horror.
Wasn't the Second World War written into the Versailles Treaty?
Well, yeah, pretty much. And the Germans have had to cop the guilt for everything.
Yeah. And okay.
Yeah, look, it's not that I love this debate. I'm just trying to stay online on YouTube, and that will be the main place where I can put this stuff. Where it's like religion and Holocaust debates or Hitler debates. It's just so divisive. We're just trying to get that political movement. I don't mind having this discussion here, but I would have to, I'll probably put it on Patreon as is, but in the future on YouTube, where we try and get that more mainstream audience to try and come on board, then I have to cut this sort of stuff out. These are the practical things. But, God willing, in time, we will be able to have an accurate, fair debate about the Second World War if we're all still alive in 10 years.
Right.
Anyone else on I can't remember what we're talking about. Germany, energy. Putin claiming, he's going to be heading the New World Order. He's pretty cocky. Do you think it might have something to do with what he knows? What has Snowden told him? Do you all believe that Snowden just went there and said, oh, look, I don't have any encrypted things, I can't talk about it? Do you think Snowden had enough information in his head to give Vlad and the gang some sort of edge? Is that why? Or is it all an act? Is it just a script? Stirring up that's a possibility too. I don't think that's what it is, but it's a possibility. Come on, everyone.
You have a couple people with their hands raised.
Where? I can't see. Where?
Tanya? Your Swiss friend?
Swiss friend.
Go. The Swiss connection.
That's right. Also, just quickly on when we were talking about Kissinger before, not sure whether you're aware, but between June the 2nd and June the 5th, so around almost 3 weeks ago now, they held the first Bilderberg meeting for 2 years, and Henry Kissinger attended, and I just thought that was quite funny. He's 99 now, so still at it.
Yeah, they call him the great social climber. He just can't bear to die and retire. He needs. Well, he's a Gemini, I believe. Geminis, they've got to have the intellectual stimulation. They've got to be out and about in the crowd.
Yeah.
What other interesting tidbits have you got from that book? Anything? That Faisal one is a classic. Make sure you send me that King Faisal quote.
Exactly. And also David Rockefeller snapped a picture of Adolf Hitler during the, I believe in Munich, when Erich Ludendorff had his funeral. Of course, he was the general who marched with Hitler during the putsch in I forgot what year it was.
Maybe like a General Milley marching.
Yeah, exactly, actually. Yeah. A lot of army connections and all that. And on that, also... on World War II, I also know that what was it? I believe David Irving said in in some kind of lecture. I believe it was on Churchill, but he also mentioned that a German chancellor who was, I believe, during the Weimar Republic, was asked, well, who gave Hitler his money and all that, and how could he arrange all these big things? And apparently the Chancellor said, well, I'm not really comfortable revealing that because those finances and all that were of a certain faith. And as a result, so that also sort of shows, a bit what was going on there.
Yeah, for all the Hitler fans, be careful what you find. You know, I like Jim Condit Jr. in that great little thing he did 2-hour lecture. You know, you get AIPAC's going to hate me, and the National Socialists are going to hate me. There's a lot of dirty linen in there, and I think we all know about the political Zionist movement, and we know about what was going on and the transfer agreement. So again, I'd like to have seen The Greatest Story Never Told go into that stuff, but of course that was a pretty amateur effort. In fact, when I was in jail, I was thinking to do something with Frederick Tobin narrating, and then Frederick just became a full-blown Nazi and started quoting SS commanders in the press, and it was like, what the hell? Someone was... Look, Tobin and that gang go after money, German money. There's a lot of German money out there. As they die, they have estates, and they're all running around trying to e-beg in their own way for the money from the German estates. So that's another thing that was going on in the revisionist movement. But yeah, that's
absolutely
interesting stuff.
Hey, I've shared a link about Nigel Oakes' videos and his interviews with Seven Hughes, the founder of Enigma Strategic Communications. It's the first link, which is CNH8. That's the first link. You can go and watch that video. And the third link would be, I think it was Nigel Oakes explaining advanced marketing for behavioral campaigns.
Can you make sure you email those to me?
Okay, so it's all about like behavioral change or behavioral science, like how to manipulate human behavior.
Tavistock, Edward Bernays, all the good advertising and marketing stuff. And that'll get back to Aquino and all the rest.
Yes, connections to Tavistock Institute, Nigel Oakes.
That would make a great video linking all this modern IRA stuff back to Aquino, back all the way through, back to Tavistock and all the rest. That would be.
And the Esalen Institute as well, like thought architecture, how to manipulate your subconscious.
Yeah, and there's 8 basic patterns. Keep the message simple and emotional and scare them. Look, you can see accounts, you know, they interviewed people from Denmark. Why did you join the Waffen-SS? Well, of course we joined. There was 1 million Europeans that joined because he said of Stalin and communism. It was horrendous. Of course they joined. And we see the same themes, in my opinion, happening now. We see these enemies and people are getting forced through fear corralled into prearranged ghettos, in my opinion, and this is the psychology that's going on, and it's very dangerous, and we'll see what happens. Thanks, Liam. Keep those links coming.
No problem.
Justin. Is there anyone else? Justin S?
Yes, right here.
Yeah.
Hey, Brendan. I just wanted to come on the meeting here and definitely ask you a question more about the kind of back to the whole polarizing and division, breaking up of the United States, obviously. So they're definitely starting it, you know. I can see it, you know, obviously with people moving to the southern states from New York, California, you name it. When do you think they're going to fully pull it off?
Oh, who can say? Everything changed for me with COVID and the shutdown of the world economy. I went from, they're not going to do something bad, not for at least 10 years. Now it's like, yeesh, anything could happen. I don't know. But I would imagine they would do it a very slow, organic, osmotic process, just letting people move down, stewing people in high inflation, high uncertainty, the old Fabian socialist trick. Create as much stress and tension, just stewing. They've got to be careful. 300 million firearms in America. So they're going to be stewing. Then they bring the solution. Then they bring the hero. This is the usual theatrical script they run. This is what I'm very worried about, as we all should be worried. I do believe there are variables. I do believe they don't have complete control, but this is the theme they seek to instigate. And as IIA says, and as Frances Stoner Saunder puts in her the CIA culture war, is that these people don't have to sign on the dotted line. They're coddled, they're manipulated, and they're pushed into a position. And with someone like Trump, he's a very unstable asset, in my opinion. However, maybe they've had a good chatting to him after January the 6th. Maybe they are using, like they used the Russian dossier on him to scare him, even though it was total it was just impossible to impeach him anyway. But the point was he looked very annoyed about it. I believe they're using the January 6th stuff on him again to try and control. I don't believe they've got anyone else. Who is there who can compete with Trump in terms of charisma, easy dog whistles, and from what Scott's told me, he's got a large section of the American public completely in the palm of his hand. They are completely in the palm of his hand. And what choice is there's no choice on the other side, and I think they're just creating a lot of energized, crazy people. You've got AOC mouthing off ridiculous stuff that doesn't even make sense. You got Bernie Sanders, who's got a nice middle ground, but, what are we going to do with the commie who doesn't wear a shirt? They're a little bit scared of him. He won't come forward. So it looks like they're going to keep the hair sniffer Biden in there, and Trump comes in 2024. This could be very dangerous. Here we go.
So
the
what
hero
about,
has arrived.
So what about someone like DeSantis, obviously? Is he a, is he going to be,
Slick Harry.
probably on that
Don't know. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could kick him. I don't know. But I think they would like maybe to push DeSantis, but he's not going to compete with Trump. He just doesn't have it. But to put it this way, this is not slowing down. The Israeli infiltration, and DeSantis is right up there kissing Israeli butt. So I don't know. Trump's there and has done some dog whistles about Israel. Pretty powerful, actually, what he did. But is it just a dog whistle? I don't know. I don't know. It's just, all I can say is if I was an American, I'd be voting for Trump and along the way trying to take over and get that information into that energy, into that world. I don't think there's any other choice. You've got nowhere else to go. So maybe that's the plan. But I just know 2 to 3 years of stewing, war, rumors of war, possible war, high inflation, supply chain shortages. It's going to stress the crap out of everyone. And then I presume, as they did in Chile, as Pinochet said to Kissinger, I'm not going to move yet. It's not bad enough. It's like Chile, and we're waiting for General Pinochet or General Trump or someone to move in. This is why I say you've got to, Edward Griffin, be very cautious with Trump. You've got to try and moderate people and understand you might be getting thrown. The only reason I got time for Trump, he's so unstable, he's so arrogant, can't keep his mouth shut. He's perfect. He'll blab the whole thing. You know what I mean? That's why I say there's hope, because he's so hard to control, and there's so many people trying to control him.
Could internet interactive activities be investigated by, let's say one of these, CIA or FBI or any of these departments, or privately investigated even?
They're all in it. They're going to investigate themselves. It's that private corporate partnership with government. They come into government, like Michael Hayden. All their friends come into the NSA, then they go out and form private companies, hang out with Israelis and form these companies with Israel. The latest video that's on YouTube, you see Bill Binney say in 1998, we had the software, we'd done the work, you didn't have to pay for it. They came in, gave it to the Israelis, and Variant and NASA, whatever their name was, sold it back to us at a huge profit. The same format is going on to this day as we speak. So if you don't get rid of that quasi-public where they just go in and out of private, it's like out of government into the East India Trading Company. And then eventually they want to roll it into, I presume, city-states. They want to roll it into the Hunger Games. They want mayors and city-states and states themselves breaking up. But that city-state, that's the whole point of the Smart City program. You will be in the Hunger Games, but it'll be very nice. You will be in the city-state with mayors pitting each other against each other, doing the same thing, keeping people distracted, keeping them looking the other way as they are slowly, we presumed, benevolently culled. So we need the rhetoric. Give us the rhetoric, Trump. Give us the right rhetoric. Bankers, bankers, bankers. Primacy of the United States. Military-industrial complex strong. Pushing down the power of these transnational corporations. When's he going to go after them? Bernie Sanders got great rhetoric. When's he going to grab? Because Bannon would be advising to do exactly that. Go after the corporations. Go after Kissinger. Is Trump going to do it? I'll take bets that he doesn't. That's the great worry, 2024 with Trump. You're going to get marched straight into a martial law system with Israel right there, legislatively welded, building the Smart Cities program. That's the great worry. And DeSantis, He's such a little. Sorry, he's a sleazebag. I don't like him. Just one look at him, I get. I don't know. There's no rhetoric. So what do we care? What about this? What about that? Well, let me hear the rhetoric. There's no rhetoric. So what are you going to do with them? Thanks, Justin. Thanks for coming in. Dirty Harry. Harry.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the part about Trump not speaking out with the rhetoric we're looking for, and that might be because he's not hearing it from us yet in any coherent form.
Yes, correct. That's what we're here
so
for.
We have time. We have until 2024 to get this information packaged, pushed out, and see what happens. I mean, who knows?
No, well, I agree. There's nothing else to do, so you might as well give it your best shot. What's that movie, Snowpiercer, with the guy that plays Captain America? It's a crap movie, but it's a train, and it's a metaphor for the class structure. And you move up the train till you get to the elite, and what do they find at the front of the train? One guy, like a Matrix-style architect, and he looks inside, and running the train are little children, so it's alluding to the pedophile stuff. So we've got to move up, grab that energy, not jump off it, stay on it, but get control of it. And it can be done. Or try to tell people, listen, they spend a lot of time messing with your head. Why? Because you have power, they know you have power, and they know the system is there, and you can use it. That's why they're trying to mess with your head and stop you using the system. And you're going to have to break that demoralization. That's why Yuri Bezmenov is so important, where he just lays out, we're going to break you. We're going to break all your traditional things, all the things that made sense, all the things that gave you a foundation. We're going to break it all. We're going to fracture you. You're going to be isolated and alone on the internet. And they've done it. And now it's time to get people back talking to each other. And there are clearly people doing this. That's why I go with Bannon. Bannon pushes it non-stop. And if someone's going to push that local precinct level, we just got to do the same thing ourselves. And then go to the Bannon meetings, go with our meeting, go where he's speaking, and take your flyers and start infiltrating. It's very simple. It's not rocket science.
Christianity is something, so at the end it's going to be less than 1 hour and 40.
Yeah, no, this is an hour and 40 of me from the start. Like I didn't record the initial starts. It's quite long, but that's all right. We'll get some good stuff in the front. I might mix it up and change it around to try and get more important points in there, but that's fine. Entire screen. Okay. So we've got Bannon here. I was going to look for biometric data being used on kids, the metastasizing war between China and Taiwan. The pendulum of big government tech has swung far from liberty. We will cross now through the power of video editing to the bit where he talks about the Makinda World Island and various other stuff with good old Eric Prince. Yes, very, very interesting. So Bannon still has at least some of the rhetoric going there. So don't worry about purity tests. If someone with a profile is talking the right talk, let's go with it. Let's get down there. Find where Bannon are having meetings. Find where they're meeting at the precept level. Find where they're meeting at the school level. Go and find Julian Romanello and others on Facebook. Find where they're having meetings. Film it, because Julian Romanello ain't going to film it. And let's try and get monkey see, monkey do happening. This is from Uno TV, which is a huge channel in Mexico, and they're actually saying that they are having 300, it's not 300 million, it's 300,000 visas for Mexicans to go into the EU. So the EU is offering work visas for Mexicans, and also so is Joe Biden. That might be significant. Netanyahu prepares for a comeback in Israel's next elections. Israelis are telling me, nah, he's done. I don't know. He's never done. That's going to be interesting. Now we can speculate the reason he's coming back is that maybe they're trying to rescue, and he's having words with Vlad saying, no, we got him backdoored. We're still pouring in. We're still welded to them. We've still got him by the balls. So Vlad, you go. That might be what's happening too. That's something definitely to watch and look at. We have here Israel took part in unprecedented meeting with Arab states about Iranian threat. That's what I said. When I was in Iran, all they talked about was Saudi. They wanted me to attack Saudi, and I said, can we just focus on Israel, high tech? I had to force them. I threatened them. If you don't have a conference, if you don't talk about Israel and high tech, I will leave and I will embarrass you. I said it straight to his face. Eventually, he was taking drugs. Clearly, the lawyer was a complete lunatic, and in the end, I just said, I'm leaving. And I left, basically. That's a short story. But I believe Rouhani and Zarif, of course, Davos doughboys, never saw a chocolate eclair he wouldn't eat at Davos. Little Zarif, friends with many interesting people, including John Kerry, very close. Interesting, very interesting. Rouhani, of course, 6 years in Scotland doing his PhD in Sharia law, hanging with Jack Straw. You hang with Jack Straw, you're hanging with the Lord Levi. You hang with Lord Levi, you're hanging with the Lord Jacob himself. So Israel taking part in unprecedented meeting, and I said to you in previous things, Iran is being used to smash pan-Arab nationalism, to smash it to pieces and force Saudi and all these other states into an agreement, the Federated States of Greater Israel. So we can expect the propaganda to flow. We are brothers, we're Ishmael and Jacob, blah, blah, blah. We're brothers biblically, and maybe you'll see a thing, well, you know, you Arabs are really the original Semites too, and we'll see we're brothers, and we're going to see the kisses and hugs and kisses, and of course the technology will flow. It's very interesting because Hezbollah and Hamas are meeting in Lebanon. Of course, we saw General Soleimani, head of the IRG, came, and it was widely believed as he was being killed when he landed at the Iraqi airport that he was having a meeting with Saudi delegates to talk about a Sunni Shia, to ending the Sunni Shia split, to then gang up back up on Israel. And I believe that is absolutely what happened, in my opinion, and they took him out, in my opinion. Smart city in Dubai, thank you. Yes, Dubai is actually a strange place. I sort of liked it when I stayed there for 5 days, and I went there and saw the big Hajj, whatever, that big building, which is incredible. That building is so tall, it just sticks up in that blue sky, and it's freaky. But there's no trees and that, and of course, because it's all ready for 5G. It's very artificial. It's a strange feeling. It feels fake. It feels like they just slapped some concrete down in the desert. And of course, it's a great place for Russian and Israeli drug money laundering. A lot of drug money laundering goes on there in the property world. Nice people there, very friendly, worth a stopover, definitely. Got some very interesting stuff, but they don't really have an indigenous high technology sector. It's all Israeli, and they're pushing it. Here's a bit of footage of me talking to a robot about BB. All very interesting, and I was there in Dubai after coming back from Lebanon, and then I hit Mexico. Here's an interesting one. Speaking of Adolf Hitler in the Second World War, Deborah Lipstadt. Deborah Lipstadt, if you'd care to remember, she took on David Irving when Irving took her to court for defamation. She should have probably lost, but Irving, you know, when you got Steven Spielberg and SKG, the giant production corporations with hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal, it wasn't looking good. The Israeli ambassador was there on the audience. I had the same thing. They came to my trial, not to my trial directly, but came pre-hearing to intimidate the local court. Well, Lipstadt picked Saudi Arabia for the first overseas visit as a US anti-Semitism envoy. US Special Envoy to set meet with government officials, ministers, civil society leaders and students while in Riyadh and Jeddah some 3 weeks before President Joe Biden is set to visit. Politics will definitely not be on the agenda, she said. Yeah, right. So as the Federated States of Greater Israel slowly take form, Hezbollah Nasrallah meets Hamas chief Hania in Beirut to discuss anti-Israel alliance. What are they going to do? Sit there and go, blah, 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 death to Israel? Because that's what Nasrallah's been doing, dealing drugs, buying weapons, firing rockets, and generally making sure Bibi stays in power. Maybe as Bibi comes back, Nasrallah's going to resume his job of threatening to kill all Jews, leave now or leave in a body bag. Nasrallah is not what he appears. I believe he is absolutely right in with that East India Trading Company. They're being funded, they're being coddled, they're being controlled. Whether he was for real before or not, understand his position. He has his position now where it is. What does he do? This is his life. This is his life now. These people have built careers on war, death, destruction, all of them, including the Israelis, all on drug dealing, drug trafficking, you know, very Islamic, very pious, not. So, you know, this is the system that is in place. We all know what Nasrallah could have done. Why doesn't Hassan Nasrallah sit there and say, hey, we should have a conference on Israel and high technology and subversion of the United States? Now, they'll never do that because that's not what they're meant to do, are they? Come on, think about it, people. They know who I am. I've been on Mayadeen. That's the same channel that interviews Hassan Nasrallah. But they're not doing a damn thing. Think about it. I don't believe a word that comes out of Nasrallah's mouth. Thank you for this link. Yes, this is quite a good leaf. The Bunting Cloverleaf map then and now. The link is below from June 24 under communitarianism. This is from Truthcaster. I don't know anything about them. I don't know whether they're rabid white nationalists or something. They seem very moderate and pleasant, and they've added some very interesting information and pictures about that bunting cloverleaf map, and some quotes by Bibi. This is quite interesting. In 2024, the entire international press, both mainstream and alternative outlets, deliberately misquoted Netanyahu after his speech at the Cybertech conference. While the press claimed that Netanyahu wanted a United Nations of the Internet, this is what he actually said, quote, "I wouldn't try to do this in inclusive ways. A new UN of the Internet's not going to work because some unprincipled elements will be in that room and they would distort this effort. I think you need a coalition of the willing. In this, I think Israel is unquestionably a leading power." Imagine what he just said then. Unquestionably, Israel is a leading power. These are big words, and it's all true. It's incredible what's happened. So if we get that quote with King Faisal talking as a front for the old Soviet Union, and we know who they are, we're going to get into some very interesting things. Israel will become the world's radar for the virus. That was in 2021, Naftali Bennett. Everywhere I go, you see Israel front and center. You see their apps, you see their research, always years ahead, almost pre-science. They knew what's going to happen. Voila. They also have the Samson option. They've threatened to nuke European cities. They've threatened to nuke Rome if they were abandoned. On the record, if you don't think they would make a race-based genetically targeting virus, I think you should think again. Bibi coming back is a little worrying. That article looks very interesting. So they go into some very interesting things there, and they mention Nikki Rapana. I might do a video on that little article all its own, maybe with a voiceover. Let's quickly close this. Let's quickly go back for some quick questions back to our friends on the Google Meet. Okay, let's wind this up. Any questions, anything to add, any commentary you would like to add to the what was just discussed?
A quick question. On the conference that he did, he stated there's the 6 eyes. You know, they think we're the 4th eye, yet we are the 2nd with the additional of what we're just hearing. He's telling us they're doing more.
Loretta,
they're going to...
what a quote. We are the 2nd eye. Hi, yeah. How do you do? We are the... There's your handler. We're the 2nd eye of the Five Eyes network. At the same time, right. Five Eyes are ganging up on China. There's Israel in bed with China, and there's Bibi saying we are the 2nd eye of the Five Eyes network. Should have been front page, should have been everywhere. Try and find it. Right. It's just disgusting. This was such important information, and Whitney Webb didn't bother to tell you. I mean, we were giving her everything, thinking she's the perfect vehicle, and this is why I'm so peeved at these internet heroes from an extremely practical point of view. In 2019, this whole narrative should have been out there. The whole narrative we see unfolding now should have been out in 2019, done, refined, talked about. If James Corbett was real, he would have said this is so important. As we went into the COVID lockdowns, this should have motivated everyone. Hey, to hell with whether or who I like and don't like. We need to move, and we didn't see it. It was shocking, as we've talked about. But thanks for reminding us. Yeah, the Five Eyes Network. We are the 2nd eye.
Yeah. I have a question for you about James Corbett. Since he's controlled opposition,
and he is. I just watched one of his latest. Yeah, the corporation is a very corporation-y, and the bankers are very, very corporation-y. It sounds like a Noam Chomsky lecture. I mean, it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Did he have who's that woman, Catherine Austin Fitz, on his show?
Yeah, of course they would.
And makes like a lot of money, like $40,000 a week, and he's living in an upper middle class suburb in Tokyo.
I heard he makes a minimum of $4,000 to $6,000 a week that we know of.
Shit, that's a lot.
$4,000 to $6,000 a week. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I heard both he and Ryan Dawson were researchers for the U.S. State Department. That's what I was told years ago.
That makes sense. So, are you going to do more exposing of James Corbett in the future?
Yeah, at the moment, I just want to keep it positive. As I get my energy back, definitely it's important to just point these things out. I think Whitney Webb's the perfect example of where it could have gone and didn't go, and who she's cross-promoted with, how the system works. No, we want to keep this genuine unless something pops up positive, and just move out the lobbying and just embarrass them. That might embarrass them into action. The most important thing now is to monkey see, monkey do, and to have ordinary people say to James Corbett, "Oi, Oh, you've got a large audience. Look what these people are doing. We've got to get political. And that the main name of the game is to get people on the street. And if they don't, then I guess I'll do a video further down the track.
So why is Whitney Webb a high priority for you to target, to expose?
Because she's hanging with all the right people. She took everything I'd done and bled for and just took it, but didn't even have the decency to give you the whole picture. It was just so blatant. It was so blatant. She worked with Mint Press News. This was a multi-million-dollar company. The editor, Moa Homesh, her father used to train under the original Ayatollah Khomeini teachers, used to train with them. They're clearly linked with a John Kerry type thing. It's a multi-million-dollar thing that came out of nowhere, highly funded. And Daniel Hopsiger did a good expose. And Whitney Webb's father, it does. Richard Webb IV is in Sarasota, Florida, good old Sarasota, and he's doing literally $100-200 million property deals as a lawyer. That's a high-end lawyer. She's gone through the right schools, she's had the right little sorority, and she's out there being a quasi-amateur journalist. Richard Silverstein said Mint Press News refused to do my expose on KGB Russian infiltration of Israel. She then claims she doesn't work for Mint Press News anymore. She came under pressure. When she's got right there in her Patreon, she still works with the Mint Press News and liaises with them. She's pro-Russia, pro-China. Hanging with George Russia Today. Galloway had nothing to say about that KGB penetration of Israel, nothing to say about the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, bunting cloverleaf map, and come on, she was handed it. She made a choice not to tell you about it because she has an agenda, and it might be linked in with that Berlin thing. Christopher Berlin having no more to say. A lot of these people are probably got some linkages with German intelligence, or who knows, German intelligence or running over. On January the 6th, there were people with German accents running around. Mohammed Atta, Hamburg, there were strong links into Germany. Now they're saying that due to Snowden, they had to shift the databases to where? Germany and Israel. So there's a lot of linkages that need. Bergie knows way more than what he says, but he's not much good. Publicly, he won't speak properly. Privately, he says way more interesting things.
Like, for example?
Like what I just told you there. There's a strong German involvement in there. We forget about Mohammed Atta, 4 years in Hamburg. Lots of them were training in Germany. Germany is playing its role in this whole thing. Then we could talk about, I don't know, let's make a link to the Baader-Meinhof gang. Baader-Meinhof is being handled by who? Vladimir Putin. That's interesting. We could take that somewhere.
That's part of the Berlin-Moscow axis.
That needs investigating.
Yeah. Going back to you viewing Whitney Webb as a high priority to expose as being controlled opposition, what about others that are very high priority, like James Corbett, Joe Rogan, and done him before,
but I do Joe Rogan. That's part of the Kissinger network. I've gone right into it. Dr. Pachenik, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, they all cross-promote. The cross-promoter Whitney Webb, Rick Wiles. Rick Wiles has got Edward Saltz asking questions directly to the freaking president of the United States, and you think Rick Wiles is what? Just some guy with his little Florida congregation asking for, with $200,000-300,000 donations for his new studio. He's traveling to fucking Davos. He's traveling to South Korea, and then I'm talking to Matt Scouse saying I wish to assist. Matt Scouse is then fired. He's not allowed to talk to me. I'm getting hammered in Kuala Lumpur, but then I'm getting offers to go and meet with interesting people. They're taking me out of the loop. I'm not controlled. Then they bring in their people, Whitney Webb. Then she does after finally a year, saying, tell our program that's interesting, might want to mention it. A year later, she's on Rick Wiles doing a show, but there's no mention of Brendan O'Connell. There's no mention of Nikki Rapana communitarianism. There's no mention of Kay Griggs. There's no mention of the bigger picture. There's no mention of the Belt and Road. There's no mention of Iran's role in breaking up pan-Arab nationalism and forming the Federated States of Greater Israel. She won't give you the narrative. I bet you she does in a book because she's come under so much pressure. She did a rewrite. Now it's supposed to be coming out in June. Wait for it. The point is to always put their person on point. Marginalise O'Connell. Maybe he'll get married and settle down, have a kid. Maybe he'll come to his senses and do what he's told. That's what they think. Maybe. We're just going to keep O'Connell over there. We're all playing our roles. We're all in the pool for the clear force denology psychological profiling game. It's a science. It's fantastic. It's amazing. And it might just be that the people doing this, controlling releases and limited releases, are saying that now if the narrative's true, we have to be cautious. These things are handled quietly. There are strategic nuclear weapons. There's biological weapons. So maybe we need to ponder that maybe there are good people, and it's very complicated when you're running a planet as opposed to a YouTube channel. We need also to remember that and put that into our narratives. That's what I mean. I have 10 at the same time. The bottom line is whatever I'm juggling in my head, we can do that all day. We can have analysis paralysis and have our arguments in our ivory towers and our YouTube channels, or we can get out on the street and get the information into the hands of the grassroots and other cliquey and very important subcultures like policing and intelligence. So whatever the answer, I can't answer it. So we'll ponder it. We'll do these shows, and then we'll also get out on the streets and lobby. We can't lose.
Okay.
Thanks, Liam. Was good.
So,
Paola. Well, sorry, Liam. We'll just go to Paola. Thanks. You're always good questions. Everyone's got really good questions.
No problem.
A quick one. Once you expose, as we say, these people, would that be interesting to expose that by hiding part of the story, they nourish the false polarization?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm so worried about, Okay.
So, and all we can do is to get out there in the street and push our narrative, our story. It's a battle of narratives. I noticed about 2017, the word narrative really started being used. And I always remember the first time I started using it, going, it's just the perfect word. It's a story. Here's my story. There's another story. Take what you will. The point is, as I've got older, before I was very emphatic, this is the way it is. I bet this is it. You can't do that now. Now I've got a pretty good strategic angle on things, and I think few people here disagree. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's very different. I think before you could tell everything they were going to do because they were so limited. They didn't have the data analytics, and there wasn't as much resistance. And they were just like a big stumbling giant. You could hear where the giant was. It was banging and it was crashing and it was making a fool of itself. You could predict a lot of things. Now with data analytics, they could come up against resistance, back off, go to the left, go to the right, and it's much harder. Plus, I believe there is a sincere shit fight going on. There is a sincere fight going on amongst them all. There's no way on good green earth that anyone with a knowledge of human beings and psychology would ever think that like the people like a Fred Smith, he's going to lose his business to Amazon. There are billionaires and millionaires who have wives and kids and husbands and brothers and sisters and familial bonds. And they're going, I don't think this is very good. And when they shut down the world economy for 2 years, they did one, it was a panic attack and they were trying to get people under control. But really what it's done is just make people realize this is really serious. And we're going to have, and Pete, you could feel the tension rising, the tension. And very soon, I think we're going to see a breakout. We can only hope they don't do something too radical. I just can't believe General Milley and all those bright young colonels around him are just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. There are games to be played. I don't want to go like Q and trust the plan, but to some degree, I have to believe that General Milley, studying him, looking at his rhetoric, it may be a game he's playing. I know about his writings on communism. I would really like to read that paper from Princeton, but no one will send it to me. So he may not have been sort of make it, he's a commie. Well, maybe he was making commentary on communism. I don't know. Let me read it so I can give my opinion on it, but I can't get a copy of it. I just don't believe they're sitting there handing it all over to the enemy. And by America being in Ukraine and other things happening, I believe something's happening, in my opinion. So we have to watch, and we have to watch out the big picture. They don't turn the robots on us, have a Cold War 2.0 and go fully autonomous, and God help us all. So we've got to have all these narratives in our head, and we've got to make sense of it. We've got to sometimes make it simple, make it concise, and a different message for a different audience. And these are the things we're trying to do together. And hopefully we can get other people involved in that over time. Thank you, Paola. Anyone else with a comment or a question, and maybe we can wrap it up. So don't be shy. No? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me get rid of myself out of the picture. You see behind me all the picture of the people behind me, and we hope that this will be a nice format we can do from time to time. We've got people from Australia, we have people from Europe here, we have people from Pakistan, the United States, Switzerland. This is the power of the internet. This is where technology is. It can be such a blessing in bringing people together. So let's not embrace technology like a fool. Let's not neither reject technology. Let's see it as a tool that can be utilized, and we can permit familial relations with those around us close, those around us far. Get people together, face to face, and the internet. I'm really enjoying these things. They really raise my spirits, and I know it's helping other people as well. So over time, it will take time. It's a very interesting time. Let's keep our hopes up, and let's just get out there on the street. We'll hear from Scott very soon. He's been down at the Trump rallies. We're going to hear from him the real fanaticism that's going on at the grassroots. Trump to many is the Messiah. We must realize that he's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. But let's make him our naughty little boy for our intended purposes. This is beyond right and left now, as Patrick Berge says. It's nothing to do with politics. It's about power. We have to engage in politics. We get everything we deserve. And if we won't run our own lives, guess what? Someone will run it for us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Can everyone please say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hasta luego. And cut.